Hi everyone. This is going to be an episode that's is related to a prior series we did. This was the series we did called "Was Paul Conned by Satan to Believe He Met Jesus?" And we went through three passages, and one of them was 2 Corinthians 12 verses 7 8. So Ryan responded to that, and I'm gonna quote his argument, and then I'm gonna quote my response, and then I'm going to show you how you analyze how this answer. So what is the issue? Was Paul possessed by an angel of Satan? Okay, so Paul in 2 Corinthians 12 verses 7 to 8 asks Jesus, he prays three times that this angel of Satan, it would leave him. That was his prayer. And then Jesus turned him down. So the question is that the way it was worded, the way he prayed, was Paul saying verbally that he was possessed, controlled by a demon, and he wanted it to leave him, and he asked Jesus to take it away? So we'll see. We'll look at Ryan's argument, you look at my argument. You can make your own mind up. I think you'll conclude it's more likely than not that he was saying he was possessed by a demon, and he wanted Jesus to make it leave him. Anyway, we'll see. And this will be, I'll be categorizing this as episode 5 in the series, which was named "Was Paul Conned by Satan to Believe He Met Jesus?" Okay, so now we'll begin. All right, so Ryan's comment on the video on 2 Corinthians 12 verses 7 to 8 says, quote, "It's not demonic possession or control," meaning Jesus is leaving him subject to this angel Satan stinger. We'll get to that in a minute. It's a devil prodding him or basically stabbing him with whatever it may be. There's a difference. It's not possession, but harassment. Ryan said this on August 4th. His conclusion is it's not demonic possession or control. And his proof is, number one, it's a devil prodding him or basically stabbing him with whatever it may be. And two, it's not possession, but harassment. And I'll tell you what he's doing. Okay, a common misconception, and it's illogical, is a way to refute a passage is to ignore what you don't like in it and just repeat the parts that don't mention the bad stuff that goes against what you're saying. So that's all he's doing. He's ignoring two things. One, Paul says he was given this angel of Satan to torment him. One. Two, Paul's prayer is not that the stinger is removed, but that it would leave him, as if it's an unwanted guest with its own will and purposes. So that's how you know what Ryan is saying is just simply ignoring these bad facts. So that doesn't work. People do this, by the way, in legal contests. They'll try to just restate the part of the case they don't get harmed by and ignore the part that is harmful to their case. And it's just not, it doesn't work. It's not a way of logically refuting something. You have to address there's these two facts that don't line up with what I'd like it to say, and you have to give a plausible explanation of what you think they mean. Okay, so I went back to the original video and audio and I double checked what was being said. So we were relying upon this particular verse, verse 8 in the English Standard Version. It said, "3 times I prayed to the Lord about this, that it should leave me." That's important, the word "leave me," because that's not how you would talk about something that isn't dwelling in you. That's something that you would use those words if something is dwelling in you. Anyway, so I quoted verse 8 where I said, Paul understood he was subject to Satan because of these visions that I am not allowed to repeat. I could become conceited, but it is given me this angel Satan to torment me, and thus I am being protected from being conceited. Okay, I'm just summarizing Paul's statements. And then I quoted verse 8, which is, 3 times I prayed to the Lord about this and that it should leave me. And I said this, what Paul is telling you is something else you cannot see. That's what I was told by Jesus. In other words, he's not telling you the words Jesus used. He's implying what Jesus said that he's not going to quote. But he was saying that Jesus isn't going to help me. He is going to keep me weak so this angel of Satan could torment me and keep me humble. Okay, again, in continuing with my comment on verse 8, I said, there are a few problems with this. Now, this is a demonic possession he's being left under by our Lord Jesus. The true Jesus never did that. There is never a person who asked to have him remove a demon who he did not remove. This isn't just a low-level demon. This is a high-level demon. This is an angel of Satan. This is a top gun. This is their prized possession, meaning Paul is their prized possession. Okay, so let's take a look at the Mouncy version of this. This is the Mouncy version, and he gives you the transliteral. So you go to BibleGateway.com, you pick Mouncy, M-O-U-N-C, as your Bible that you want to look at, and then you get to see the Greek words underneath the English words. So anyway, so the key things to focus in on is Paul is given himself, or it's been given to him, a skolops, which is actually means stinger, does not necessarily mean thorn. We'll get into that later. And then a angel, translated or mistranslated as messenger. I think that's not correct. I mean, why change it from it just completely goes directly into English with just using the word in Greek, angel. Satanas, Satan, we don't have to translate that. But most important, it says here at the end, I pleaded that it would leave me, as if it's got its own mind and soul and he can't make it leave, and he wants help to have it leave him. Not taken away, but it would leave him. So it's in place for its own purposes. Okay, and what is further consistent with this is something that's dwelling inside his flesh, rather than something that's sticking into his flesh and you could just pull it out with your fingers or something. Is the word skolops or skolops in 2 Corinthians 12 verse 7. It means, quote, anything pointed. This is from a book on dictionary of plant names where they need to know that. This is how skolops is how you would identify also a scorpion stinger, which sometimes in the Bible is talked about as a method of chastisement. The word for thorn was a different word, skolos. You can see how close it is, and you can see why the translations sometimes jump to a conclusion that they're looking at the word skolos and they translated it as thorn initially. But I think people are starting to realize it just means stinger. A scolop represents, quote, some injurious foreign body, and that's what I want to focus on, is that means it's a foreign body inside your body. So the very word skolops conveyed that concept that it was something pointed, but it was actually something also injurious that's inside your body, that's foreign to your body. So there's two meanings that you need to see in just one word, and one of those two meanings is something consistent with being possessed by it, by being controlled by it, because it's inside of you. You can't get away from it. Okay, so let's do a recap by looking at the verse as I quoted it in the original episode. It was from the English Standard Version, a very good version, 2 Corinthians 12 verses 7 to 8. So to keep me from becoming conceited because of the surpassing greatness of revelations, a thorn, but it's actually stinger, was given me in the flesh. So he receives it by a messenger, angelos. It should just be angel of Satan, to harass me, to keep me from being conceited or becoming conceited. So that's the purpose, apparently, of the angel of Satan to do this, to harass him. And so we have to talk about later, we'll get into Paul's idea that by turning people over to Satan, it actually serves God's purposes. So it seems to be he's thinking that he's been turned over to Satan and it's for good purposes. So he has a very backward view of Satan than we would think. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. So it's not asking it to be taken away. It should leave me. He's subject to this thing. He has no control over it, and he wants God to make it leave him. But he doesn't ask him to actually take it away. It's kind of talking about this thing has its own mind and direction, and he wants it to leave him. So it's possessing him. It's in him. And of course, because it's a stinger, it's something that's a foreign body in your flesh, so that's inside of you. So everything points to the fact that this is what he understands is this angel of Satan is in him, and he was given it, then it's in him. It's a stinger. It's inside his flesh, and now he wants it to leave him. So this is very much clearly pointing towards possession by this demon. Okay, so we're going to just take a little closer focus on verse 8. He's saying, I pleaded 3 times that it would be the angel of Satan would leave me. So he's giving it a mind that it can decide whether to leave me or not. The solution is to be ordered out of Paul, right? It's not a solution of healing a wound or a physical ailment being healed. This is something that he's saying is dwelling in him. He's implying it's dwelling in me. I want it to leave me. If he were saying it was some sort of disease, he would say, please take this disease away from me or heal me. But he's saying none of that. He's saying he wants this thing to leave him because this is somehow possessing him, controlling him from the inside of his body as a foreign element. This stinger, this sharp object that's a foreign body inside of his body that is actually the angel of Satan as he describes him. So clearly he's indicating he's subject to the will of this thing and he wants it to be ordered out of him. And he knows Jesus can do that, but Jesus turned him down. And if that isn't enough, I want to summarize now the 4 traits of this particular stinger. It was given to me, okay, and it appears to be from Satan, not from God. But the only thing is ironically seeking to make him not conceited. So did God give him an angel of Satan? That's kind of bizarre, but that would be the only alternative, and that seems, bizarre. Okay. That he would believe that would be God would send an angel of Satan on him, to sick on him. It's just like it'd be sending like a wild dog on somebody that you don't care about or something, just vicious. That's mean. So given to me in the flesh, so it's inside of his body, and he calls it an angelos satanas. Okay, it's hidden by your translators. They don't want you to see that, so they put it to they change it to messenger, and that it says that it would leave him. That's what he wanted. And I thought it would be useful to listen to a normative Christian, Fred Dickason in Demon Possession and the Christian, talking about demon possession in a serious manner, looks at this passage. And he makes a couple of observations that are useful. Page 120. The term a messenger of Satan, angelos satana, admits of more than one meaning, but there is only one that Paul had in mind. It could mean a demon sent by Satan, as he has angels who serve him, Matthew 25:41. Okay, so Jesus confirms there is such a thing as angels, but that's a high-level demon. That's not just your low-level everyday demon, I would say. It then says the term angelos may also refer to Satan himself, meaning a messenger of Satan could mean the messenger of Satan himself. However, the actual, and this is some commentator, the actual usage is against it. For Satan, so often as he occurs in the New Testament, is never named angelos. So because he never is called angelos, probably it is a sub-lieutenant. Though this is not the strongest argument, there is some strength to it. A second meaning might be that the demon actually dwelt in his body, or some say in his sin nature. In this case, he would have been demonized. There is no indication other than that this phrase, meaning angelos satana, and that's important. This guy has an inadequate explanation of what he's saying here. We'll go to the next slide. All right, and he continues, and he basically says, in this case, he would have been demonized. There is no indication other than this phrase, meaning angelos satanas, that would indicate that Paul had an inhabiting demon that would bring his apostolic ministry under suspicion. But it's more than just suspicion; it's a fact, because there are 3 clear indicators. There is a possession that's dwelling in him, and he uses words to make that clear. A stinger was given me. All right, so it's not like I was stabbed by a knife or something. It was given to me. So someone deliberately gave this to me. This was a conscious choice of some third party to give this to me. Second, he names it as an angel of Satan, which would make you think he's saying Satan gave this to me. And third, he pleads to God, Yahweh, or Jesus, that it would leave me. So he's saying this thing has been making a decision. It will not leave me. It has an ability to leave or not leave. If you order it to leave, it will leave me. And so that's the prayer. His prayer is not to heal me from a physical ailment. His prayer is not to even take it out of me. I mean, physically, like it was an object, like a piece of wood, like Ryan was trying to suggest. No, this is, I'm praying that that it would leave me. Can we arrange for that? Can you talk to this thing and it will, this angel of Satan, can you make it leave me? So it's very clear that Paul is reflecting demonic possession, and he doesn't seem to have any shame about it. So we shouldn't decline to accept what he's saying at face value. That he has no problem admitting this, but he's still telling us the truth. That he went to his Jesus, asked that it would leave me, and he turns him flat down. All right. So to deflect this whole thing about Paul, being under demonic possession, that's all you can construe it from it. The scholars, the experts, the commentators, all basically try to claim it's some eye disease or some walking problem or something that's completely never implied or mentioned in the text. So what you end up having is all kinds of interpretations, and none of them can be the same because why? They're all making up stuff. So when people don't want to face what the text actually says, this is what you end up getting, and this is what Barnes says. He says is a real problem in knowing what this text means, listening to commentators. So he says in Notes on the Bible, everyone who has become familiar with commentaries knows that almost every expositor has had his own opinion about this passage, and also that no one has been able to give any good reason for his own. Yeah. So if you're not willing to use the words on the page, and you're just making up stuff, yeah, you all have your own opinion. So nobody's in agreement. Most of them have been fanciful, and many of them eminently ridiculous. This is a commentator commenting on the comments on this particular passage. So I can say this flat out with great assurance. If you refuse to look at the actual text, which actually Ryan did the same thing, he tried to focus in on two aspects of it that are unquestionable: that he's being harassed, and it's a stinger. But he does not want to address the fact it's something given him, and he doesn't want to address the fact that Paul is praying for it to be taken away. That shows entry, possession, and refusal of Jesus to order a retreat that this item, this angel of Satan would leave him, and then they ignore the angel of Satan too. So it leads to ridiculous interpretations, and that's correct if you don't follow the text. Okay, and but I'm going to give you an answer that would be coming from the original church, the apostles. How did they view Paul? And again, the Clementine homilies are the Acts of the Apostles written by the Ebionite church. This is their archives of what happened. And they have an archive of communications between Peter and Paul. They put it in the Clementine homilies. Rufinus, a Catholic translator, basically retranslated it, toned it down, removed Paul's name, put in Simon Magus. All the scholars have ever read it. He's unquestionably addressing Paul. Well, here he's going to be unquestionably addressing Paul, but again, Rufinus goes and moves all this stuff around, so you cannot line it up directly against Paul. But these are words that could be his expression directly to Paul, and that's how I read this. This is intended for Paul, but Rufinus has overshadowed it with a bunch of junk he puts all around. But this is the key words that he says to Paul. But you, being ignorant of their foreordained law, that is not to eat meat sacrificed to idols, you are under the power of the chief of demons. Through evil deeds, wherever you are polluted in body and soul, and in the present life you are tyrannized over by sufferings and demons. If therefore you wish to be the vesture, the clothing of the divine spirit, neither believe in idols nor partake with them of the impure table. So that's a rebuke to Paul for eating meat sacrificed to idols, which he teaches in both 1 Corinthians 8 and 1 Corinthians 10. And we have a whole series on that. So this is the answer why he's suffering from demons, and this was Peter's answer to his problem. Stop eating meat sacrificed to idols. I just wanted you to know, if you wanted to recreate this path and find the Clementine homilies, you can look for the Ante-Nicene Fathers. You can look for volume 8. This would be true for almost any version of the Ante-Nicene Fathers. If you looked real careful, the small print you'll see here, it says the Clementia. Okay, so that's what we're showing you. We'll go to the next one. All right, so I'm just going to show you the text that I typed up is there on the right. So again, if you go to page 274 or 75 of this book, you will find the very same thing I typed up for you. Okay, so we're going to look at where the effect this had on Paul. And this confirms that what I said is correct, that he is believing that God is allowing him to be subject to a demonic influence and control of Satan for a good purpose, because Paul is going to replicate the exact same thing with Christians as a way of teaching them lessons. He's going to turn people over to Satan, which basically means put them under his control and influence, if not possession, as he's suffering and being tormented, right? In 1 Timothy 1, verses 18 to 20, KJV, this charge I commit to you, son Timothy, according to the prophecies previously made concerning you, that by them you may wage the good warfare, having faith and a good conscience, which some have rejected concerning the faith, have suffered shipwreck, of whom are Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I delivered to Satan, that they may learn not to blaspheme. So basically, he's trying to stop people from blaspheming, and his solution is to turn them over to Satan. So that's what, similar to the lesson he learned, Jesus has turned him over to control of Satan, so that Satan will teach him to stop being so prideful. So I think that establishes. There's one more passage where he says the same thing. Hold on, I'm going to stop this. Okay, so Paul's going to do this again in 1 Corinthians 5. There's a wicked person who is engaging in illicit relationships with his father's wife, and Paul's going to tell them to put him away, which most interpreters, and I think is the correct view, is that meant to execute and kill him. The way he said it, put away from yourselves that wicked person, 1 Corinthians 5:13. And then he says, Paul viewed doing this was, quote, turning him over to Satan, which many interpret as returning him to Satan's world of darkness and torments. So by executing him, you will turn him over to Satan. And maybe, just like we're going to see Christians do later, is they would pray to Satan to take over the person's body. So that was similar to what he had experienced with his Lord Jesus, as I said in 2 Corinthians 12:7. And next, I'm going to just show you a couple of brief examples of how the church actually prayed to Satan over people who they were executing as heretics. Both Protestant and both and Roman Catholic did the same identical thing, and following Paul's examples. Okay, so we might as well learn about that too. Ciao. Okay, we'll start with John Huss. Many people don't know about John Huss. He was actually the true first reformer. He was of the view that Jesus was both human and divine, but by 1415, the Catholic Church had now concluded that Jesus was never even human at all. He was completely divine from birth to the Ascension. And that even went against the early church's view, the early Roman Catholic Church. They would have called that Docetism, but now they've completely capitulated to that view, that Jesus just appeared to have human flesh but really didn't have it. Anyway, so he's being executed for saying that Jesus was both human and divine. And then before they kill him, they're going to say something over his soul, and I want you to hear what it was. And think about who they're praying to. Before they placed the paper crown of blasphemy on his head, they said to him, amongst other things, quote, "We commit thy soul to the devil." And this is in a book by Radislaw John Huss, The Commencement of Resistance to Papal Authority, 1882, page 330. Okay, so watch. This is going to be replicated again in Calvin's Geneva, where he's co-prosecuted Servetus to a conviction of basically saying something that's not consistent with Scripture. I can't explain it because it wasn't blasphemy. He just wouldn't say Jesus was the eternal Son of God. He refused to say that. He said it was a contradiction in terms. Anything that's a son is begotten in time, and therefore you can't say it's eternal. Kind of common sense, but the Nicene Creed said there's such a thing as begotten, not made, so you have to believe in the eternal Son. Big doctrine for Calvin. He co-prosecuted the case against Servetus, and then when the trial was over, they burned him at the stake alive, which even the Catholics never did, but Protestants were going to outdo the Catholics, it seems. And so he's burned alive, and as he's dying, and they've used the greenest wood, so it would take the longest time to burn and torture him and torment him, because they were going to tell him right up front, we're turning you over to Satan. So this is what Farrell, who was basically a co-adjutor with Calvin over the city, theologically, and he shouts out to all the people who are watching these flames going around Servetus's feet. He says, "Listen, Satan is about to take possession of this soul." It's almost like praying to Satan, take possession of the soul, isn't it? I mean, he's rejoicing that Satan's about to take possession of the soul. Sort of a cruel torment to do to somebody who's probably praying, and Servetus was praying. And by the way, to add to insult to injury, is Servetus his last prayer was to the Father, the Eternal Father, and your Son, Jesus Christ, right? And then Farrell later writes there in mocking terms, he says, oh, if he had just moved the adjective eternal from the Father over to the Son, we would have taken him out of the flames. So had he said, had he prayed, O eternal Father and O eternal Son Jesus, into your hand I commit your spirits, they're saying they would have thrown water on the flames and taken him out of the flames, because now he acknowledged the eternal Son doctrine. But he didn't do that. He could have saved his life. It just shows you how thin a ground they had to kill this guy. He wouldn't say the word eternal Son, because isn't it a self-contradiction in terms? Anyway, point is this is another example of people killing people, turning them over to Satan, praying to Satan to take their possession of them as a way of, and doing it verbally so they can hear you and scare you to death that, maybe I need to repent even as I'm about to die from, what I've been a long-held belief or whatever. So, so there you go. It's found its way into our churches. Fortunately, we don't kill people usually anymore for having wrong doctrine or different doctrine than we think is correct, thankfully. But that's the church of yesterday, yeah. So, but where was it getting this doctrine? It was getting it from Paul. And where was Paul getting it from his Jesus? And what's so wrong about it? It just doesn't make sense. If you're the true Jesus, you would have released us. Christians behaving the way Paul's Jesus act, if you ask me, they were beasts to kill people and use these words over them. And by the way, in both of these killings, they were unjustified. Someone who doesn't say Jesus the eternal Son is just using common sense, that those terms are inconsistent with each other. So you can't kill someone for disagreeing to use an irrational statement about Jesus. He did believe Jesus was God. He wrote that in his book, Restoration of Christianity. He says, I believe he's God because God dwells in him. That's how he saw it. But he wouldn't say Jesus was the eternal Son, and yet he's going to be executed just because he won't say those terms. Anyway, well, God bless. I hope this helped get you to be a little bit more committed to sticking by Jesus and rejecting following someone who was not following the true Jesus Christ. Could not be in a million years the true Jesus Christ. Okay, God bless. Hope this helped everybody. Ciao.